trees with their gnarled branches surrounded all sides like silent sentinels. While most of Equestria had just shifted into spring, the Everfree was still gripped by clinging bits of winter. Snow covered the ground, and there was a lingering chill in the air. The unicorn's hot breath left puffs of steam to curl and rise for a few seconds before disappearing into the night. For a long while, the unicorn had sat in utter silence on the edge of the pond, with only a few nearby candles for company. The light from the tiny flickering flames fell upon his coat and mane, which had been dyed from its natural color to a pitch black. Even his cutie mark had been covered by the dyes, his flank appearing utterly blank. Only the quiet sounds of the forest were audible. There was the creaking of the trees, the shifting of the pond water, and the occasional buzz and chirp of insects. In all, it was a scene of tranquility, and it was just what the unicorn needed to prepare for the task of the evening. Yet, as he took in another deep breath, hoof steps began to echo across the trees. Nexus, we're ready when you are. The black unicorn spelled Nexus took in another breath, and his turquoise eyes opened as he turned to look at the pony who had approached him from behind. I will be along shortly. The pony who had interrupted gave a nod before disappearing back into the forest. Nexus waited for the hoofsteps to fade into silence before lighting his horn. His magic flowed freely, and he used the mystic energy to reach to his side and levitate a number of items into the air. He then looked skyward, fixing his gaze on the moon. Our queen, guide me this night, for it is beneath this full moon that our efforts come to fruition. Nexus spoke the words slowly with a voice that carried the tone of a pony well practiced in preaching, whose words could inspire loyalty and devotion. It was a voice that had drawn great minds and strong bodies to the cause, though at the moment Nexus spoke only to himself as he lowered his head and touched a hoof to his chest. Let me be merely a vessel for your will and strength until the deed is done. The levitating items drew close to him and began to circle slowly. There was a cape, midnight blue in color, with white stars all across its surface that billowed as it moved through the air. Along with the cape were pieces of armor, all comprised of a grayish-purple metal. There were horseshoes, a neck brace, and lastly a chest plate which had a turquoise crescent moon set into its center. Let me bear your mane, Nexus spoke as he drew the cape over his back, both powerful
Sí, sí puedo
and
escuchar
beautiful,
la historia.
a depiction of the endless sky. Let me stand in your uniform, he continued as the armor began to
Es
secure
muy
itself
buena.
to his body.
Nosotros poníamos
In
por
the
lo menos
armor that
uno,
pays
quizá dos
tribute to
capítulos al
your
día.
image and
¿En serio?
greatness. Let me be your
¿En
agent
serio?
this
Qué
night,
genial.
for it is you I serve above all others.
Nos
The
reuníamos
final
todos
piece
aquí
of
para ver
armor
la historia.
levitated towards Nexus, a helmet made of the
Órale.
same metal as the chest piece. The unicorn guided the helm carefully, bringing it down his horn until it fit snugly onto his head. May your power be with me tonight, for you shall breathe and taste the cool night air for yourself. You shall look upon the world with eyes of your own, and no longer will you be forced to share a body with a weak foe as you have in the past. Tonight you shall be your own mare, never again to be threatened by the elements of harmony. Nexus rose to his hooves and looked at his reflection in the pond. He now appeared the ultimate doppelganger of his mistress, and like any eager acolyte, he was ready to bear witness to her power and knowledge. Through the efforts of him and his group, they would see their queen rise again. Yet it was only he that was allowed to look so much like the queen, to lead the spell that was about to be cast. It was his place of honor, one no pony would steal from him. Tonight, Nightmare Moon, Your followers shall grant you a life of your own, and the tyrants of sun and moon shall fall." Mentally prepared, Nexus turned from the pond and began to walk into the forest. He followed a trail that connected to a nearby clearing, which came into view quickly. The clearing was occupied by several unicorns, Pegasi, and earth ponies who were moving back and forth across the space as they constantly checked their work. The ground had been cleared of snow, though a few piles were left dotted about the space. On both the exposed ground and on the piles of snow there were wooden bowls filled with oil-soaked powders. Paint had been employed to draw arcane lines of power, and cloaked Pegasi worked in the air above to push clouds together to hide the clearing from prying skybound eyes. All the ponies Nexus saw wore the black cloak of the Order, except for 3 who stood giving orders, a pair of Pegasi and an Earth pony. They, like Nexus, wore the honored armor, though he alone wore the flowing star-filled cape and the helmet. Only he had the honor of wearing those vestments. "How close are we, Nightwind?" Nexus asked as he approached the trio. "Cloud cover is almost complete, and the Pegasi only need a few minutes to get their bows," the dark purple Pegasus answered, staring back at Nexus with her turquoise eyes. Such eyes were a sign of the Order, a blessing that granted not just their Majesty's regal turquoise eye color, but also enlightenment. "Good," Nexus said before turning to the Earth pony. "Stonewall, do you have the items?" "They have not left my sight since our departure from Canterlot, Nexus," the Earth pony replied, motioning to the bow that was currently resting on his back. "And Grey Gale, is our special guest awake?" "Oh yeah, she just woke up," the Grey Pegasus answered. "And boy, she's scared." "That's because you told her Stonewall would snap off her horn if she tried to escape," Nightwind snipped. Grey Gale shrugged her shoulders nonchalantly. "Hey, it kept her from trying anything. She couldn't try even if she wanted to. She's got an anti-magic brace on her neck." "You have all done well," Nexus spoke, stopping the argument before it could go any further. "But now we must all take our places. Stonewall, take the sacred items to the center of the ritual. Grey Gale, Nightwind, prepare your torches and head to the sky." The 3 nodded, moving to their assigned tasks, while Nexus turned his attention to one side of the clearing. There, lying on the ground, was a mare who had her hooves hog-tied, with rope and a cloth bag over her head. Treading carefully, Nexus moved between the wooden bowls and approached the hog-tied pony. Her violet coat was dirty from lying on the ground, and her dark purple mane was a rough mess. The sight of her like that made Nexus smile, and once he was close enough, he used his magic to remove the bag on her head and reveal her terrified eyes. "I'm so happy you were able to join us this evening, Miss Sparkle." "Who are you? What are you going to do to me?" Twilight Sparkle asked in a panicked squeak, just barely managing to find her voice. She struggled at the ropes around her legs and tried to use her magic to escape. However, not only had she been physically bound, but the metal brace secured around her neck kept her from making use of her magic. Nexus laughed a little to himself and used his magic to pick Twilight off the ground. "Inquisitive, though I should expect no less from Celestia's star pupil," he said with a smug superiority. He then turned and began walking towards the center of the clearing as Twilight floated behind him. Ahead of him, the Earth pony Stonewall had set up a metal pedestal upon which he had placed a wooden bow from his back. "What we have planned for you, Twilight Sparkle, is very simple. As to who we are, well, consider us simply the loyal servants of Equestria's true queen, Her Regal Majesty, Nightmare Moon." "Are you crazy?" Twilight asked him while she twisted around in Nexus's magic, continuing to try and free herself. "Nightmare Moon is gone. How can you serve some pony who is gone?" "It's much easier than you think, Miss Sparkle. I will not, however, spoil the surprise. For the moment, all you need to know is that your contribution is appreciated.